Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Behold podcast on the Genre Equality channel. I'm Hitzer.
I'm Hardy.
Yes, that's right. Hadi joins us once again for a new episode of Behold. It seems that we only talk about me and Hadi here. Um, Fictional combat sports,
I know.
ranging from our Hard Hits Wrestling podcast, which is of course fictional combat,
Mhm.
to right here. We'll be talking about some of the best boxing movies of all time. If you want to check out Hadi's debut episode on Behold, go back to last month where we talked about some of our favorite fictional sports TV shows of all time. One of my favorite Beholds that I've done so far. And I think this might be my favorite because it's a topic near and dear to our
It's kind
hearts.
of like the combination of two of your passions, right?
Absolutely. Film and boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, for those who aren't familiar with us, why we wanted to cover boxing movies isn't, we aren't just fans of boxing movies. We are fans of pugilism, the sweet science,
Mhm.
in general. Tell the fans a little bit about, your history of either, training boxing, following boxing, being a passionate follower of this intense, brutal combat sport.
I mean, my dad was the one that introduced me to boxing, like way in the early '90s. When it was like
Mm.
the period of Mike Tyson's reign, like his later reign, I would say.
For our generation, I think Mike Tyson is probably the boxer that got us into boxing, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it wasn't his the crazy '80s where he was like this dominant boxer. It was more of the
Mm.
flashy, the controversial kind of Mike Tyson, I think.
The Don King era. Lah.
Yeah, the Don King era. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of glitz, a lot of lights, a lot of showmanship
Ear bite,
and
ear biting.
and
Yeah.
misbehaviors,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and at that time, I think a lot of really good boxers such as Roy Jones and all that were kind of overshadowed by the hype of Mike Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
But because my dad was such a huge fan, he'll be the one that like showed me who Roy Jones was, and that's how I knew uh the more intricate, the lower weight classes, which were less popular in that sense during that era because of the highlight of the heavyweight division starring Mike Tyson back then, lah. Yeah,
I actually feel that the heavyweight division, regardless of era, tends to overshadow the lower weight divisions just because, of the spectacle of watching big men punch each other.
correct.
But of course, as we've come to know, as we've become, deeper fans of boxing or
Mm-hmm.
have trained in the sport, it is the lower weight classes that are far more skillful and pound for pound more technique,
Yeah, correct.
more technical boxing, So like during that era, yeah, of course, Mike Tyson got us into the sport, but then I started watching Roy Jones Jr.,
Same.
Prince Nassim, and
And then
all
eventually
those other.
into Pacquiao and Mayweather, that era, lah.
Absolutely, yes. So, up to today, I mean, just this past Sunday, I watched Canelo Alvarez
Loose.
upset by Bivol
Yeah.
in his light heavyweight debut. Like I do feel like Canelo sort of
I mean, he's not
he
natural light heavyweight.
that's like 3 weight classes above him. He was striving for greatness and he failed. It's a bit like when Adesanya lost to Jan Blankovic.
Yeah.
It's not his weight class. I'm not gonna hold it against him, but Bivol really opened my eyes. I thought he was gonna get washed. I think I
Same.
bought in. I bought into the Canelo hype.
Same. I mean, because I
Yeah,
saw Canelo defeat Kovalev back in the day.
I know, I
Yeah.
know. And I think Bivol proved to people that he's legit. Like there are
Exactly.
weight classes are there for a reason.
Exactly.
And Canelo just couldn't overcome his reach. But that's neither here
Yeah,
nor
that's
there.
why this is our boxing podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. This is our 48th episode, and we're gonna step into the ring with some of the pound for pound greatest boxing movies
Mhm.
of all time. We'll be bobbing and weaving through
Oof.
Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull, Clint Eastwood's $1 Million Baby, got to represent some women's boxing there as well. Sylvester Stallone's classic Rocky, probably the epitome of boxing movies, at least in terms of popularity, and its franchise sequel, Ryan Coogler's Creed.
Mhm.
But before we get into those four all-time greats, the Mount Rushmore, shall we say, of boxing movies,
Mhm.
are there any other boxing movies that you like to shout out as honorable mentions that you love?
Wow, this is a good question actually. I was thinking about it. I mean, because I saw the list of what we were going to cover, right?
Yep.
Um, there were some cool movies back in the day, I guess. Um, like
Sure.
not as good, but I think deserves a good mention. Right, would be something like The Fighter.
The
Uh,
Fighter is amazing.
yeah,
Yeah,
with
Christian Bale, Mark Wahlberg. Yeah.
correct. Southpaw, with Jake Gyllenhaal. Again, not really great, but then I like the realism of the training and the boxing in
Mm.
the ring was quite well done. I think by Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah, but the
Yes.
story
Yes, I
itself was a
agree.
bit weird. Like the
Yeah.
movie itself wasn't that good, lah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think The Fighter was actually legitimately a really great movie.
Mm,
It's of course one of those like semi-true biopics.
yeah.
Wahlberg plays Mickey Ward, as you know, he's a famous boxer, and Christian Bale plays his training partner Dickie Edlin, lah, who has a cocaine addiction.
Yeah.
And it's more of a family drama and a
Exactly.
dialogue-driven boxing
More than
film.
a
So
boxing film, correct? The boxing is kind of secondary to the what's happening around the boxing. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I agree, lah. But it does offer a brutally realistic glimpse
Yeah.
at us at the self destruction that many professional boxers seem to delve into in their personal lives. The personal angle is
Yeah.
very good in it.
And then there was
Uh
this lesser known one, I think starring Robert De Niro, Hands of Stone.
Hands of Stone, yeah, another Robert De Niro boxing film.
Yeah, way later. But this was about Roberto Duran, like the Hands of Stone guy, lah.
Yes, yes, yes. Roberto Duran, famous,
For no mas.
for No Mas exactly. There's a ESPN 30 for 30 about No Mas as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Really like that. Have you seen a movie called Cinderella Man, by the way?
Yes. That's what's in Russell Crowe, right?
Russell Crowe, yeah, it's set during the Great Depression in the 30s. Ron Howard directed it, and I really like that as well, because the whole financial struggle of being a boxer
Yeah.
is even more heightened in the Great Depression,
Hmm.
the immense financial loss and the way Braddock, who is the heavyweight champion that Russell Crowe was portraying, is so desperate to make his way to the top. It feels very good. It's both brutal and also wholesome. It's a very Ron Howard classic Hollywood blockbuster kind of film. Oscar bait, and that I really like that as well. Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
I think there's one more, Requiem for the Heavyweight. I think that's what's his name?
mm.
Marlon Brando.
I've actually I've actually never seen Requiem for a Heavyweight. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
I watched it back in the day when I was doing the whole going through all the old films and all that stuff.
Brando stuff. Yeah. What
Yeah.
what was this particular Brando about?
Basically this washout boxer lah. He was number fourth in the world, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was it? Requiem for it? No, no, no. Yeah, yeah, correct. It's basically it's not Marlon Brando. It's somebody else. Sorry, but basically,
Requiem for a Heavyweight.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically it was about a washed out boxer and how
Mm.
his life changed due to the loss that he had. Where he was once like the guy, the champ. He was like I think he
Mm.
reached like the number four in the world. He always keeps on repeating that and all that. And how his
Right.
life took a turn for the worse and that kind of thing lah.
Yes, yes. I think the Brando movie you were thinking about was On the Waterfront.
On the waterfront. He's also another one, another washout boxer, also going
Yep.
through the same thing. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And those are just some of our favorite boxing films of all time. Obviously, we started watching boxing movies before we became boxing fans.
Yeah.
And since then, we have come to understand or appreciate the technique and skill a bit more. It's not just rocker sock'em robots like Rocky likes to portray. Of these four films, which one do you think is the most accurate to boxing?
Wow. I think Million Dollar Baby.
Yes, Million Dollar Baby, and I think Creed is a close second.
Yes, I think so. Because Creed, I mean, there's some Rockisms that manage to creep into Creed. But
Mm.
yeah, I think Million Dollar Baby is the most accurate, second to Creed, and then Raging Bull maybe third, and then Rocky fourth.
Rocky might be the bottom of all the boxing movies
In terms of
lists that we've
realism lah.
listed. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In terms of realism, not in terms of drama or the quality
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
film, lah, for sure, for sure. But we'll begin with Raging Bull,
Sure.
which is I think my favorite
Mm.
Martin Scorsese films. Typically, biopic films are not my favorite. Biopics often fall into two categories, right? The overblown hero worship or
Mm.
kind of a dull Wikipedia textbook account.
Correct.
And this one is the rare film uh with the moniker, based on the life of, that comes across as anything that comes across this as more lah. It's energetic, it's entertaining, it's the perfect counterexample to those lazy copy and paste Wikipedia biopics. and a brilliant argument for filmmakers to continue work in this genre. The picture, if you are unfamiliar, it portrays the life of boxer Jake LaMotta,
Mm-hmm.
who is a middleweight icon from the 40s and the 50s,
Mm-hmm.
and develops one of the most compelling character studies to ever reach the big screen. I think for all of the 2 hours, Martin Scorsese and his favorite actor Robert De Niro in the title role have us mesmerized by this individual who is by turns kind of sympathetic,
Yeah.
kind of sad, but mostly horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, Raging Bull is said to be mostly accurate, with the lion's share of the details culled from Lamotta's own biography. However, although Lamotta is credited as the movie's quote unquote consultant, he was reportedly unhappy with the final result because it portrays him as nothing short of an uncouth, insensitive lout.
Mm-hmm.
But Lamotta of the movie is a man of extreme appetites who is driven by kind of his baser, bestial impulses.
Yeah.
The paranoia, the jealousy, the blind rage,
Yep.
the sex and violence are inextricably linked.
His
So the title is
extremisms lah.
so the title is extremely out. Lemota is Raging Bull. This isn't a case of Straight Out of Compton, where it was a film written by Dr. Dre and NWA, that made them look like stars, that made them look like humble warrior poets. This is a warts and all biopic, and you can tell, if the subject matter is perhaps bothered by some aspects of it. I think that's better because it shows that there was some subjectivity to it. It wasn't just a
Hero
last dance
worshipping.
type of, yeah, it wasn't a last dance type of thing, right? What did you love about Raging Bull?
I love the acting by Robert De Niro. I think, especially the scene. I mean, the post fighter, Jake LaMotta, right? The overweight, the
Yep.
the just how he's gone through his how you say his later life lah.
Yeah, yeah. What's his washed up? What's his
Yeah,
overweight?
and
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
him, and this is why I knew about On the Waterfront was because he recited On the Waterfront, famous line, "I
Mm,
could have been a contender,"
yep.
and so that was one of the one of the cool moments lah, where Jake LaMotta kind of like a film within a film lah. I don't know. Yeah,
Yes,
but
yes,
whatever it
yes.
is, it's I think Robert De Niro just nails it out of the park lah. Like hits it out of the
Mm,
park. What nails it out of the park? Hits it out of the park with this
mm.
performance. Like I think this is one of his best acting performances ever. You know?
Absolutely. Alongside Taxi Driver
Yeah,
and The King of Comedy, all of them with Scorsese, lah, of
yeah,
course.
exactly. And that is the reason
Yeah.
why those two collaborated so many times lah.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I love the portrayal of him inside the ring, which it
Mm,
feels very accurate. Like he's sort of a graceless brawler. He's a terror. He beats his opponents. He doesn't outbox them. He
no, he
destroys them.
destroys them. Yeah.
He's vicious. And the two people who spar with him in real life, his wife Vicky and his brother manager Joey, played by Joe Pesci.
Mm-hmm.
These are the two who mean the most to Jake, and who, as a result of his inability to trust himself or trust others, he loses them as well as his career. He beats Vicky mercilessly, because he suspects her of infidelity.
Infidelity. Yeah.
Yeah, and whether he accurately believes that his brother betrayed him or not, he always lets loose on him with an explosion of violence.
Yeah.
It's also a great depiction of corruption in boxing. How much,
Mhm.
especially in the 40s and the 50s,
When the
the
mafia
mob,
was involved.
yeah, the mafia didn't just control, racketeering, gambling, prostitution, and all of that. Boxing was a big part of it.
Yep.
And Lamotta was one of the fall guys. In fact, one of the reasons why he never got his fight against championship fight against arch rival Sugar Ray Robinson
Was
was
because
because of
yeah.
his unwillingness to capitulate to the local mafiosos.
Yeah.
And then later on, when he finally gets his championship shot in
Too
the
late.
late 40s, too late, and then they also force him to take a fall,
Yeah.
and he takes the fall so badly that an investigation is launched into it.
Mhm.
His acting was so bad, and he was almost thrown out of boxing.
Yeah.
And then later on, when he wins the championship, only to lose it to Sugar Ray.
Mhm.
It just, his career is so sad. He becomes this pathetic figure, broke, overweight loser who spends time in jail
And
for corrupting the morals of a
yeah.
minor. He lost his wife and children.
Yep.
He's trying to do a stand-up routine right at the end.
Yep.
Raging Bull is this perfect antithesis to Rocky. Is the other side of it. Like Sylvester Stallone's tale was about boxing triumph, and this is about boxing downfall.
And this is the thing. Like a majority of boxers, people who become professional boxers, this is their reality. Not
Yeah.
everybody, becomes the next Sugar Ray Robinson. A
Yes.
legend, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard. Not all of them end up, legends. A lot of them end up like Jake LaMotta. Yeah, we know the name because we're boxing fans, but the
Mm.
sad reality of their lives, being broke and all that. Even like world champions like Joe Louis and all that, ending up broke in the end, um, unable to support themselves and all that. Even though they're
Yep.
legends, but a lot of boxers end up the way Jake LaMotta ends up, Sad,
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's very very sad. What do you think about? I think of all the four boxing movies we're talking about this
Mm.
month, the cinematography of
Oh,
Raging Bull is probably the most
it
unique in
is.
terms of in terms of trying to depict boxing action.
Mm.
First of all, it was a black and white film in an era where black and white was largely gone.
Yep, yep, yep.
It has a unique look that was almost unheard of at the time,
Hmm.
and in black and white, especially considering Scorsese's choice of shots and use of slow motion,
Hmm.
the violence seems a bit more stark, a bit more disturbing. There is no room for romanticism in the
No.
ring, with the kind of inky black blood staining the canvas. And during the fight sequences, the director also uses a number of point of view shots,
Yes, I was
POV
just
shots,
gonna say that the POV thing was very unique.
yeah, yeah, designed to show the world, however briefly, from Lamota's perspective. So it's rare that you get a POV, a first-person player, for example, from the boxer's perspective.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, and what do you think it adds to the film that other boxing movies don't have?
Uh, I think other boxing movies kind of copied this, which was the closeness that you felt in the ring with
Yeah, yeah.
this film. I think this was the first film where a boxing film where you felt like you were in the ring with Lamota, and you felt that
Mm,
closeness, that like a bit of claustrophobia, in fact, of
yeah,
because of the way it was filmed, lah. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
really like that. I think like Cinderella Man kind of mimicked that later on.
A little bit, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that
yeah.
kind of feeling of claustrophobia in the ring, like everything disappears around you, the crowd disappears, it's just you and that boxer, and that
Mm,
kind of really intensifies the experience of watching it, like, like as if you are boxing there with him, and you could feel the
mm,
pain, and you could feel the impact sometimes,
yeah.
if that makes sense, lah. uh
It works especially well because Jake LaMotta was sort of a phone booth fighter, right?
yes, he was toe to toe kind of guy,
Yep.
because of his advantages, like his the thick skull, and heavy,
Mm-hmm.
and the hands are not really heavy, I would say, but heavy enough, lah.
I mean, a Justin Gaethje sort of animal,
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean, lah. Yeah, yeah. The fight sequences themselves, with the cameras sort of swirling and swooping around the ring, and the soundtrack sometimes, gulping into silence and into moaning and into like
Mhm.
weird animal noises. They're
Yeah.
very unforgettable.
Yeah.
It really brings about the bestiality or the visceralness or primalness, of being in a fight,
Mm.
experiencing the crowd, the electricity of it. There is this one scene where a screaming woman is trampled underfoot, and then
Yeah.
instantly forgotten about. It presents boxing as a scary endeavor. Like, it's not romantic in the way that Rocky is. Yeah, I love how visceral it is. Like, any closing thoughts about Raging Bull before we move on?
I mean, it was one of those films that really, I mean, apart from like On the Waterfront and Requiem for a Heavyweight, I think Raging Bull kind of focuses on that rage, on that visceralness that you're talking about, that no other film before it had kind of explored. I think this was the first film to really explore the the the,
Yep.
the darker side of boxing in that sense. I mean,
Yeah.
in the ring lah, because Requiem for Heavyweight and On the Waterfront kind of explored the downtrodden life of a prize fighter lah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but not much in the ring itself. Yeah, I think Raging Bull kind of opened that up lah. Yeah.
Yes, yes, I agree. And there's a reason why a lot of the films that we've picked aren't overly romanticized aspects of the sport, because being fans of the sport and being fans of some of
We
the fighters,
yeah.
we know, sadly, like 9 times out of 10, what the end story is.
Punch drunk.
Um, yeah, yeah, punch drunk, broke, taking fights in when they're old and weathered, just trying to get one last paycheck. It's
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 sad.
it's a very it's very sad. Like, not everyone is Floyd, not everyone is
Pacquiao,
Mike Tyson, Pacquiao, and all
running for
that.
freaking president in this country. You know,
Yeah, he's not going to win, but
nah,
yeah, yeah,
it's not.
yeah. The son of a dictator is going to win. So
Yeah,
There you go.
Is it I mean, never mind. Let's not talk about Filipino politics right now.
Yeah, yeah. Next up, though, it's a bit like Raging Bull once again. Another sad story. It's Clint Eastwood's $1 Million Baby.
Mm.
I went into this I think in secondary school or poly. I think poly year
Yeah,
one.
2004.
Uh, 2004. I'm expecting a boxing film.
Mm-hmm.
Not expecting this to be a movie about aging, paralysis, and euthanasia.
Yeah.
But but that's what we got. And I think $1 Million Baby, of all of Clint Eastwood's filmography, is a masterpiece. Pure and simple. It feels very deep. Feels very true. It tells the story of an aging fight trainer and a hillbilly girl who thinks she can be a boxer.
Mm-hmm.
It is narrated by a former boxer who is the trainer's best friend,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a boxing movie. It's a movie about a boxer.
Mm-hmm.
What else it is, all it is, and how deep it goes, whatever emotional power it contains, I cannot suggest in this, I guess mini review that I'm giving, because I kind of don't want to spoil the experience for the people going to the story.
Oh, okay.
But this was one of the best films that I've seen in the boxing arena. One of the best sports films I've seen, and has one of the best mid film twists
Yeah.
that really takes the film on a left turn. It's a
Yeah.
bit like like it's on the level of let's say Gone Girl had a mid film twist, Parasite had a mid film
Yep.
twist,
Yep. Yep.
that absolutely like turned the story on its head, and it doesn't
Became
become what you
another
think it's
movie
about to be.
altogether.
And $1 Million Baby is one of that.
Yeah.
That's all I can say, but I don't want to say what it is.
But those who
So
don't
like
know lah. Those who watch this
those
know
who
lah.
those who knows lah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. As I mentioned, Clint Eastwood, he plays the trainer, Frankie, who runs this CD gym in LA
Mm-hmm.
and reads poetry on the side. Hilary Swank, in one of the best roles, plays Maggie from Southwest Missouri, who's been waitressing since she was
She
13.
was on the
And
Ozarks,
sees
bro.
Yes, yes, she was in the Ozarks. Terrible finale, by the way.
Oh, okay,
And
never mind. Talk about it later.
and sees boxing as the one way she can escape waitressing for the rest of her life. Lah.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? With what begins as a film about a rising amateur boxer on the come up,
Mm-hmm.
and where it takes a turn without spoiling it. Lah. Like, what do you like about it?
Okay, I mean, I liked it because it was. I mean, I liked it just because of the honestly, it was a twist at the middle of the movie, right? Like when the movie
Yeah.
twist at that moment in time and went all the way to you know other issues apart from boxing. It's kind of interesting. But when we're talking about the rise of a young and upcoming boxer and all that, the training montages, the way you see Clint Eastwood kind of be this mentor slash kind of an asshole also character, right?
Yep.
It's kind of fascinating as well.
Yes.
First of all, because women's boxing has always been in the shadow of men's boxing. It's never been something that many people watch.
Absolutely. Like one of the best, I think the best boxing fight of this year was Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, and nobody watched
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're a boxing fan and you
Unless you're a boxing
understand
fan.
why it's a significant fight,
Yeah, and also because like those two girls decided to just like literally just stand in front of each other and start
and
punching
go.
each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Whenever I feel like Rocky is unrealistic, I saw that fight. It's like, oh, some people do fight like this. Yeah.
And so there's again a different kind of viciousness when it comes to women combat sports that you can't really I can't put a finger on, but then like even though they're less physically powerful than men, right?
Yeah.
There's still something insanely rageful and insanely visceral about it, And
Yes,
I kind
yes.
of think that this movie kind of brought that up a bit. But I think what really stood out in terms of the boxing was the coaching itself, lah. And her going through the rise in the rankings and all that stuff to kind of get her title fight, Yeah, and that like she kind of, made it to that scenario that she dreamt of, lah, where she was gonna be a champion, lah. Yeah, so like that rise, lah, that the rocky rise, in that sense.
Yes, yes.
Unknown to someone that is on the cusp of greatness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's what kind of wanted I wanted to touch upon. For the first half of the movie, it plays like Rocky or
yeah,
Girl Fight with equal focus on the trainer and the trainee.
yeah, yeah.
Sure, there is kind of less glamorization of the ring activity than occurs in most boxing movies because I think for Maggie, the character, winning isn't about fame or making money; it's about loyalty and earning respect and getting a better life. Her voiceover monologue in the beginning, she grew up knowing one thing: she was trash. And boxing was her way to escape the past.
Yep.
And she remains true to her graph coach who spends his free time, learning Gaelic and reading Yeats, and attending mass every day. And when a hotshot manager offers to take over her career and help her into the big time, she politely turns him down to remain with Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
Had this been just that, had this just been that story of Frankie and Maggie, boxer and trainer in the doldrums of women's boxing, had it just been a Rocky type story,
Mm-hmm.
this would have been a solid motion picture.
Yeah,
It would have been like totally fine, good, good bordering on great.
yeah.
But because the film takes an unexpected turn,
Mm-hmm.
um, it elevates it
Mm-hmm.
into something so much more than the typical boxing movies. It becomes more painful.
So
What
much
it
more.
shows more. It shows more heart. It offers a
So many
look at
emotions.
yes, yes, yeah. It offers like a really rare look at euthanasia. I think in films
Mm-hmm.
that is not uh popularly depicted in Hollywood cinema. How to help a loved one uh die with dignity, or palliative care, or to ease the pain of what they view as a valueless existence. Million Dollar Baby packs a greater emotional wallop because of it lah. And boy, its scope is so big. It goes into two different movies and it packs so much into just 2 hours, two and one quarter hours, I think. And the story never seems rushed. Also,
Nah,
like Eastwood is very good at pacing and allows the characters and circumstances to breathe
exactly.
by including subplots. There is a mentally disabled would-be fighter played by Jay Baruchel.
Yeah.
There's Maggie's ungrateful family
Oh, the
and
her family sucks so bad.
Frankie's guilt-ridden past.
Ugh. Ugh.
There's so much in it that's so good lah.
Yeah.
And if there are any weaknesses to the film, it's just nitpicking.
Ah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
almost a perfect film. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of the greatest. Like not just boxing, but one of those films that you know why it did. It was nominated for Oscars and winning the Oscar. You know,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I think
yeah.
best picture,
Absolutely.
best director, best actress, best
Mm.
supporting actor. That kind where
Yep.
they won I think 4 Oscar awards and the big one some more.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
because yeah lah, this film was is kind of it became a classic lah, and it became a
Mm.
classic because of the second part, of the movie lah. Both parts put together lah. If it was just the first
Mm.
part, you're right, it'd be a good great movie, but it wouldn't be a Oscar winning movie. I think yeah,
Yes.
it'd be a
Yeah.
movie that we remember very fondly. Like, hey, that's a really cool boxing movie,
Mm-hmm.
but because of what happens next, all that crazy emotions we go through in the second half of the film, that
Mm-hmm.
elevates it to that level of Oscar contender. And duh lah, it's Oscar beating lah, definitely lah. Back then lah,
Mm.
and you know why lah? I mean, until now we can still remember the scenes. That famous scene in the ring. That slow
Yeah.
motion scene.
Yeah. The slow motion scene. Yeah.
We can still remember that. We remember the
Mm-hmm.
sadness at the end. The crazy sacrifice at the end that Frankie
Yeah.
does. We remember the scandalous family. Trying to be pieces of shit. When
Mm-hmm.
when their interactions with Maggie and all that. And yeah, lah, that's because of the second half, lah. And that elevates it, lah. And yeah, that's I will always remember Million Dollar Baby. It's one of my favorite. You're right, lah. It's one of my favorite boxing films because of how left turn this movie became. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I think Million Dollar Baby was still remains one of my favorite boxing movies
Hmm.
of all time, and certainly I think the best women's boxing movie of all time. That's quite easy
Yeah,
to.
not many.
I mean, let's go fight.
Yeah,
There's a few lah,
there's a
but
few.
most of them never reach this quality lah.
Yeah.
Kudos to Clint Eastwood, who is one of those like problematic people in real life, but I just can't bring myself to like cancel his films because they're so good.
Talking
Yeah,
about
Million
who? Uh
Clint
oh,
Eastwood.
Clint.
Yeah.
I mean, he's he's too old to kind of be cancelled already, lah.
I know. I mean, he almost comes from like a different century. Like it's hard to
Yeah,
like.
like you want him to
Uh,
change to be this new person, and I think it's like it's past his age. He's outlived his, you know, his
mm,
cancellation.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
He
yeah,
cancelled
yeah.
himself just because he's so old.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that was our review for Million Dollar
sure.
Baby. Next, let's move on to something more positive, more uplifting. There are two kinds of boxing movies. We've already talked about the ones that offer a grim, tell it as it is perspective of life in the ring.
Mm.
But then there are those that seek to uplift through a rags to riches story. If you think Rocky is a cliche, keep in mind it came out in 1977. That boxing cliche wasn't a cliche back then yet. It was a Best Picture Oscar winner, and it belongs unabashedly in the second category.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the film does contain some realistic elements that is set in a believable arena. It is essentially a fairy tale about a down and out pugilist who gets a chance at a fight of a lifetime, but at the same time wins the goal. Rocky certainly didn't invent all the sports movie
No,
cliche.
no,
They were
no.
they were they were around all be a long time before the 70s, but
Hmm.
it applied them in a way that captivated audiences and didn't seem over the top.
Yeah.
And I think since 1976, nearly every big sports comeback and triumph has been inspired by and or compared to Rocky, regardless of whether it involves boxing or not. It's no longer the Cinderella story. Every time you watch like an underdog wins, like everybody is like, oh, it's the Rocky story. Rocky is the new Cinderella story. Um, Sylvester Stallone, who wrote and directed this picture, did a great job at making Rocky more than just a cliched boxing film.
Hmm.
He made it a really compelling, down to earth drama, featuring nuanced, quiet performances from Sylvester Stallone, who is not known for nuanced, quiet performances. It featured a great love story. And up until the end, and until he gets a once in a lifetime fight against the heavyweight champion of the world,
Hmm.
remains a pretty semi-realistic look at what it's like to be a journeyman boxer. What do you think?
Yes, this was.
Yeah,
I mean, okay.
yeah,
This was what this was the first, like, I think my first ever boxing movie.
movie.
So
Yep.
that it has a very sentimental place in my heart, lah.
Mm,
The Rocky franchise. I wouldn't just say Rocky itself. I mean, Rocky One. I when I rewatched it a lot older. Like when I watched it the first time I watched Rocky One was when I was maybe 13, 14.
same.
And I understood it to an extent, but when I watched it maybe 4 or 5 years later, when I was later, closer to a young adult, right? Then
Mm,
I felt the impact of how great this film actually was, lah. Um,
mm.
you had a great story. I mean, it was written so well. You had this up, this down and out kind of whatever
Jour- Journeyman.
journeyman,
Yeah.
journeyman boxer based on a real life boxer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I think he sued Sylvester Stallone
Right. Right. Right.
for for
Yeah.
for kind of like using his story without kind of like acknowledging him.
But the story of a journeyman boxer is so common that
Exactly.
ho- you know how can you point to one specific boxer,
It's just
right?
because in the interview he kind of Sylvester Stallone kind of mentioned it, lah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was Sylvester Stallone's mistake. Like he
Yeah.
shouldn't have done that, lah.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, taking inspiration from that, where he
Mm.
saw this journeyman boxer take on Muhammad Ali, uh to the later rounds of the fight, kind of inspired
Yep.
this whole thing, lah. So anyway, and from there, he kind of built this world around this boxer. First of all, he was a journeyman. He was kind of broke.
Mm.
He kind of
Mm.
met a not even like a very beautiful woman, or just a normal looking girl, but very
A very
sweet,
shy,
very
shy,
shy,
sweet. Yeah,
introverted, nerdy,
you know.
you know.
Yeah, and Rocky is not your typical Jake LaMotta boxer
No, no,
either.
no.
He likes turtles. He's very quiet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not rageful.
Yeah, he has the same type of personality as Adrian.
Correct. And so they kind of
Mm.
like, and this love starts to blossom and all that, and then that opportunity comes where
Yeah.
Apollo needs. I mean, Apollo, who is based on Muhammad Ali, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot more gregarious and a lot more like louder and whatever.
Yep.
Great performance by Carl Weathers, by the way. Um,
Mm.
he needs a tune-up fight,
Yeah,
right? So therefore, I think one of his fights uh
got
got
cancelled.
cancelled. He needs a new guy, so they brought in Rocky lah, this relative unknown lah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he had a fight scheduled in Philadelphia, so it's like let's pick a Philadelphia fighter, a
Mm.
Cinderella story. Let's craft an angle to use a pro
Yeah,
wrestling
yeah,
term
yeah.
to sell tickets to a fight that should be one sided. And it shows what a great businessman the quote unquote Ali allegory is. Like it's something like Ali would have done. In
Yeah,
like fighting Inoki or something. Like let's
correct.
craft an angle around this rubbish
Yeah,
fight.
and so
Such a good businessman.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they had to craft this story because Rocky was really a unknown, a journeyman of no,
Mm.
that everybody thought he was going to lose. Even Rocky himself thought he was going to lose.
And the beauty of the story is he did.
He did lah.
He did lose. He lost the fight, but he won the war.
Yeah, he
He
won the
won.
crowd.
He won the crowd. He won respect. He won the girl.
He
That
won
was
the
what the
respect
story
of
was about.
Creed, and how he
Mm,
battled through that underdog status, going through all the rounds. Like he was expected first round knockout, but in the end, he
mm,
was the one that knocked down Creed in the first round.
mm.
And that was like Creed was like, because Creed had underestimated him.
Yep.
Creed kind of wait what? And so
Mm,
suddenly you see Creed take on the fight more seriously, and then Rocky, because he just knocked down Creed, he kind of have that self belief,
yeah.
and then you have this battle I mean, unrealistic though, because of
Sure.
the amount of headshots both fighters take.
Mm,
Just
mm.
insane.
Yeah.
Even though we've kind of seen it in real life now, especially in the UFC, right, where they take multiple headshots and they're still up.
I
Like
mean,
Kelvin Kata.
Yeah. Chandler Gaethje.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
so you kind of have and yeah, so when this fight was ridiculously dramatic lah, right?
Mm,
And then Rocky, those eyes, those iconic swollen eyes,
yeah.
and yeah, and this what was supposed to be uh and was just an exhibition fight became one of the greatest bouts in boxing history, or that's what they say in the
Mm.
movie lah. And then
Because of this, yeah, the
yeah,
Cinderella story. Yeah.
exactly, and then that obviously iconic Rocky calling out Adrian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even though he lost the fight. I mean, like I remember why this was great was because the focus wasn't on who won the fight. The focus was on
Mm.
Rocky's journey and Rocky, realizing what was important to him. So him shouting Adrian, Adrian, as the winners were announced and all that. Right? He didn't even give a shit. Like it was
Yeah.
it was in the background noise.
Yeah.
All that
Yeah.
mattered was Adrian running down the ring and him finally reaching Adrian. That was the more important part.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I loved about Rocky, and that's what made it great, and I think that's what made the subsequent sequels lesser than the original,
Yes.
because it's a bit like Die Hard. I mean, like Die Hard, or the original Die Hard, right, was the story of just like a normal cop
Mm-hmm.
going against the odds, fighting these
Mm-hmm.
terrorists. But he was just a normal guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sequels made him look like a superhero.
Yeah.
Like that's not John McClane.
Yeah.
Like and Rocky is not a world beater, world champion.
But in the end, the
Um,
sequels made him this world champion. lah.
yeah, they made him beat Creed. He ended the Cold War.
No, he did.
Amongst many other amongst many other things lah. That he is not that type of fighter. They should have kept that struggle going for him lah. Instead, he became the successful world champion.
Yeah.
Which is not what the story is about, or what the theme of the story is about. Like, and that's what made me sad lah to watch Rocky, the sequels. As much as I enjoyed them,
Yeah.
they featured great training montages, Eye of the Tiger, and all
It
that.
became its own cliche. You see. It became its own thing lah.
Yeah.
With all the every Rocky movie would have a very cool training montage. Right,
Yeah.
Rocky 2, Rocky 3, when he joined
Apollo.
Apollo's crew and gym,
Mm.
and then Rocky 4
That-
when he's avenging Apollo
Apollo's death, goes to Russia,
and trains
and then
in the
you
snow.
trains in the snow, and then the Russian crowd root for him in the end.
Yeah,
Oh,
the freaking
oh
the
boy,
Russian Politburo stood up and clapped,
yeah,
and then he said something. He had like a freaking. He had a cool line in the ring, right, where he said that
if I can change,
you can change.
you can change.
Everybody can change.
Can change. Yeah, and then he ended the Cold War,
The
and
Cold War ended.
World Peace was
Was there like a
was in the
parody
air.
30 for 30 on this?
Yeah, there was about him ending the Cold War. It was great. Up until Creed, the parody 30 for 30 was the best Rocky sequel.
Yeah, it was. Then
Yeah.
we have the Rocky Five, which we don't talk about. Uh,
Yeah. Even Creed didn't talk about it.
and then there'll be the interesting 2006 Rocky Balboa, where I have this improbable.
Yep.
I love the movie still though.
Yeah.
Rocky Balboa, where you have an older Rocky, way older Rocky, in his early 60s,
Mm.
fighting the world heavyweight champion
Yep. Yep.
and lasting the entire match.
Yep. While it is not unrealistic to find a boxer in his 50s or 60s going in one last time, because
Uh,
sadly we've
yeah.
seen that happen.
I mean, okay, to be fair,
But
we have seen like people like George Foreman in his 40s winning the world title.
absolutely, like, or Mike Tyson just coming back last year,
Yeah,
right?
fighting his 50s. Yeah.
For a random fight on the zone, right?
And he's coming back to the ring again to fight Evander?
Oh god, this is so sad.
It's not those lah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sad, lah. But that's the stuff that makes me sad when I think about the Rocky franchise, because the first one was so good, the first one was so different. Rocky himself, the way Sylvester Stallone played Rocky was very different
The
also.
first one was
Um,
the best, yeah.
Talia Shire, who you might know from The Godfather as well, also plays a very good role in Adrian. I think she was great in this as
She's
well.
great in The Godfather too.
She's great in The Godfather as well. Everyone was great in Rocky, and the sequel sort of lost sight of it and became a more superhero type franchise about Rocky, lah. And that's the thing, that was Rocky 1, and we talked a bit about the Rocky franchise as well. What we never expected to happen was for the Rocky franchise not only to continue Marvel Cinematic Universe style, but to spin off a different franchise
Yeah.
called Creed, following the son of Apollo Creed. Okay, when Creed was first announced, right,
Mhm.
there was no reason to think that Creed would be good.
Yeah.
Like extending the unkillable Rocky franchise into the Rocky Cinematic Universe, spinning off Apollo Creed's previously unseen son, who was never
Nope.
mentioned.
This was an
Um,
unseen son, unknown son.
yeah, 10 years after Rocky Balboa, it sounds as cynical, a cash grab, brand extension, corporate maneuver as you can get.
Yep.
And then they announced Ryan Coogler was directing. And at that point, I had seen Ryan Coogler's Fruitvale Station.
Mhm.
And then Michael B. Jordan was starring in it as the son of Carl Weathers' character.
Mhm.
And then suddenly it was like, wow, hey, could this be good? Could this feel like more of a successor than an imitation?
Yeah, exactly.
And it turned out to be one of the best films in not just in the Rocky franchise, but in the boxing film genre in total. Do you agree? Do you think that Creed is one of the best films in the Rocky franchise and one of the best boxing films of all time?
Yes, and that's because of the uniqueness that is Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. This collaboration could
Yes.
have worked without them, and also with the added bonus of having Sylvester Stallone kind of give the kind of bring it back to what Rocky was lah.
Sylvester Stallone's performance in this movie, which earned him an Oscar, mind you, um, reminded you that Sylvester Stallone is more than just the Expendables caricature that he became.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone is a legitimately good actor. There is one monologue he delivers in this film about why he doesn't want to get cancer treatment.
Yeah.
Talking about how he has nothing left in life, but how he's just like those posters in the background. That moved me to tears, and it
Yeah.
moves me to tears still to this day watching it. Michael B. Jordan plays someone who is a bit different than Carl Weathers' character, but you can see enough of Creed in him. And also his resentment of living in the shadow of a famous father.
I mean, not wanting to use
which
his name at the beginning.
Yeah. Exactly. Tessa Thompson is great in this as well as a singer who's losing her hearing. Everything about this movie at first didn't seem like it was going to be great. It ended up being great, and most of it is because of Ryan Coogler's direction.
Yeah.
I have never seen boxing fights choreographed or shot as dynamic as Ryan Coogler did. There's a fight in the middle of this film that is a single one take shot throughout the
that
entire
was
fight.
beautiful.
It was the most dynamic boxing sequence that you will ever see in any boxing fight.
Yeah.
I will fight you to the death on this. Ryan Coogler has directed the best boxing fight in cinematic history. Do you think?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean the fact that they use again, and this is something that has been done throughout the entire Rocky franchise. Maybe not throughout. I would say in the later, I mean in Rocky 5 actually they started using real boxers.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, so and then in Rocky Balboa they used the real boxer, and then again in
Tony Bellew. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, yeah, they used Tony Bellew in this one lah,
Yep.
who is a
Yep.
famous light heavyweight, cruiserweight fighter. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and then
I
yeah,
mean,
sorry, go ahead.
like, sorry, yeah, I love that all the, even when he's training, even when he's fighting, they always have like the shots of the fighters records,
Mm,
like 24-1, how many KOs, blah blah. Even the technique, yeah, sure, it's Rocky fight to an extent, but
mhm.
for the most part, I think the actual bobbing and weaving, slipping punches, the
Yeah,
tight hooks and everything, it all feels like legitimate boxing more so than Rocky.
it does. I mean, I loved it
Yeah,
when when Andre Ward came into the ring, like at the
yeah, yeah,
beginning,
yeah.
like when
Yeah.
he knocked out Adonis, right?
Yeah, yeah, and before that, Adonis refused to wear headgear. Right,
Yeah.
the Ward came into the ring. And he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna wear headgear."
I'm like, that's Andre Ward, man. That's one of the greatest
Mhm.
boxers of all time.
Yeah, 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 and I mean, I loved. There's also this early
I mean,
start,
even though he wasn't
very
called
start.
Andre Ward, he was some guy called Danny Wheeler, lah.
Yeah, he played a fictional version of Andre Ward lah. In
Yeah,
fact, it was Andre Ward who was supposed to fight the British boxer Tony Bellew.
yeah.
Before a press conference, scuffle led to a cut, which led to the cancellation of the fight. Again,
Hmm.
a very realistic depiction of how a fight can get cancelled.
Yep, it has happened before.
Because I have seen this happen before. In fact, just like the press conference, shoving and punching. I've seen worse happen at press conference.
Yeah, agreed.
I've Yeah, I've seen a guy drop kick a guy off a car. Literally, it's boxing is wild, guys.
It is.
Boxing is
It
wild.
is.
Yeah. But yeah, but like through it all, the story of Adonis, wanting to get out of his father's shadow, but at the same time unable to escape it, but at the same time embracing it as well.
Mhm.
The early sequence where he's watching one of his old father's fights on YouTube, Creed versus Rocky,
Yeah.
and then he's shadow boxing along with his father. It's very beautiful.
Mm.
It has also one of the best training montages that I've seen in Rocky since. Uh,
Yes.
the third one, primarily because he had like a different type of a trapified Rocky score, shall we say?
Hmm. Hmm.
It gives it a different edge. Adonis lives in areas of Philadelphia that we've never seen
Yeah,
before.
and you see the
Um, you know,
beauty of Philadelphia,
yeah, yeah, Philadelphia as a character. I think one thing that you can say about the Rocky franchise and the Creed franchise is it made Philadelphia feel like a
a
character in
character in
itself.
itself. Yes, correct.
Like Baltimore in The Wire.
Yeah,
It feels
yeah.
like it's its own thing. And Adonis lives in different parts of Baltimore. With a different with different people, and not the Irish American or Italian American community. He lives with
Hmm.
the African American community. Um, uh, love this. Like the precision, the floating one take shots, the direction, Michael
Yeah.
B. Jordan's performances. Sylvester Stallone fucking knocking it out of the park in his limited screen time. There is a sort of lyricism and poetry to this film that was lacking in the Rocky sequels, and there was abundance in the first Rocky. It feels like a return to form. It
Hmm.
feels like that fighter that you think is washed up, and then he comes back and he delivers like one great performance. You're like, oh god, he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that this Creed brought so much faith back to the Rocky franchise to me. And they lost it with Creed 2, to be honest, but Creed 1 was amazing.
I mean, Creed
What
Two.
any like yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So go ahead with Creed 2.
No, Creed
Yeah.
Two was basically Rocky Four, lah. It was the sequel.
Yeah.
What? It's the way that we love Rocky Four for its the cheesiness and all that,
Silliness.
and its silliness. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's also how we kind of love Creed Two. It's a different
Yes. Yeah.
way. Yeah, it's like how it's very different from how we love Creed One. Like Creed One was again like how we loved Rocky, that
Mhm.
underdog story. But then now with a twist of fighting out of his father's shadow.
Mhm.
About this fighter who is going through his own identity crisis. There's something that Rocky didn't really
Mm.
have. This was something that Adonis had. And therefore I like that it
Mm.
was something different from Rocky's issues that he had in Rocky One. Adonis was going through a unique perspective, maybe because also he's African American, his journey is different. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And also the depiction of being Adonis was at first, a journeyman fighter, just like Rocky was,
Mhm.
and the depiction of, like his first fight in this Mexican bar,
Mexican,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, it felt very realistic. Like, yeah, a lot of middle of the road fighters that fight in venues like this, clubs and bars, to maybe 50 people in the audience.
yeah.
it's not the glamour of elite boxing.
You know, it's not the glamour of
Um,
MGM Arena, or Madison Square Garden. You know.
Yes, yes, which is why, like, Adonis feels so out of place when he's, like, that fight in Liverpool, right? At the end, when
Yeah.
he's in front of a stadium arena, he feels, a bit intimidated by the bright lights and all that. All this is a very, like, realistic depiction of fighting, of the fight scene, of the fight industry. And Adonis, through it all, becomes is still very compelling. But I really love that Sylvester Stallone himself got a little subplot. Tessa Thompson got a little subplot, and
Mhm.
those subplots feel important as well. It's like there's no weak point
Yeah,
to
there's
the
no.
picture.
Yeah,
It's a very well rounded fighter, like, shall we say?
it is.
Creed the fighter, Creed the movie.
Mhm.
Yeah, great film. Yeah. Any last thoughts on Creed before we cap off this episode of Behold?
I mean, Creed was one of those things where we didn't expect it, lah. Just like Rocky, lah. You know, it
Mm.
was. I think. I honestly, I think the cynical side of me, lah, who has seen all the Rocky sequels and all that, like, oh, okay, they're just cashing in on the whole Rocky hype. But goddamn, Ryan Coogler just made it its own, lah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I actually think on a pure technical level, this is the best looking and best made of the entire series, including Rocky One. Just
Sure.
on a technical
On the
level,
technical
yeah.
level, sure, I agree with you.
Yes, this is the film that got Ryan Coogler noticed by the mainstream. There would be no Black Panther without Creed, to be honest.
Oh
Like,
yeah, hell yeah, you're right.
he absolutely got noticed because of this film. Fruitvale Station was a great, like, hit at Sundance and everything,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
wasn't
But that's
the
how you
big
start.
money
You know,
maker,
you need a Fruitvale Station to get you to the next movie, right? And that next
which was
movie was
Creed.
Creed, and then after that you get the Marvel movie.
I, I think Creed proved that Ryan Coogler can take a franchise like number 7 or 8 of a franchise and still make it good,
Yeah,
And Black Panther was like number 16 or number 17 or whatever, right? The
whatever. Yeah,
Marvel Cinematic, and he was like, okay, you can handle this. You can handle a big franchise. Let's see how
yeah,
you do with this, and he'll be back for Black Panther 2 coming up soon.
exactly.
I heard that Michael B. Jordan is writing and directing Creed 3. Are you looking forward to it?
You know what? Why not? It might not be as good as 1 and 2, but sure, I'll still watch it.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely may not be as good as 1, but I think it might be better than 2.
Maybe, yeah,
There's a certain unrealism to 2 where, he was fighting a boxer that's
like 3 times
clearly
the
like
speed,
clearly 4 or 5 times his
weight
weight
class.
class lah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like no sanctioning body in the world should
like the
would
catch
have
rate was
sanctioned that.
the catch rate. Even if they did catch it, also it'll be hard for both boxers. You know.
Right, right, yeah. If you thought that Canelo looked small against Bivol, oh my god, Michael B.
Was a
Jordan
dwarf.
looked tiny. Wasn't raw. This is like fucking John Jones versus Dominic Cruz or something. It was
It's
ridiculous.
ridiculous. Yeah. How big and small. Yeah. I mean, it was Drago's son, Ivan Drago's son.
Yeah, yeah,
Played by
yeah.
another real life boxer.
I forgot his name though. Do you remember who it was?
Yes. Florian Montenegro. He's
Oh yeah. The Romanian boxer,
Romanian,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Boy, they miscast him for that one. They should have gotten someone closer to Creed size, like Andre Ward or Tony Bellew or something like that. But
Yeah.
wow, yeah. We love boxing movies. We would love to talk about more combat sport movies coming up and
Mhm.
more sports movies in general.
Mhm.
I think Hardy is my kind of ringer to bring in whenever I want to talk about combat sports or sports.
Mhm.
And yeah, for sure, Hardy will be back on the Behold podcast very soon.
Mm.
Till next time, though, this has been Hit Zero.
I'm Hardy.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye.